You ever find yourself lying in bed at 2 a.m. scrolling through endless titles like you're mining for digital gold, only to give up and watch cat videos instead? Hey, I'm not judging. I've wasted more hours down cat video rabbit holes than I care to admit. But what if I told you there's a hidden stash of weird, wild, and downright mind-bending sci-fi flicks just waiting for you to hit play? Yeah, buckle up, folks. Today we're diving into science fiction gems on streaming platforms that'll make you question the nature of reality, your bedtime habits, and quite possibly your entire existence. Or at least they'll help you kill an evening when you can't decide what to watch. Let's kick things off with a lesser-known indie darling called Prospect. Imagine a father-daughter duo scraping alien moon dust for precious minerals, like they're on a cosmic version of that gold mining show your uncle binges on Saturday nights. Low-key, that alone sounds more entertaining than any reality TV series with swamp, tuna, or truckers in the title. The rumor mill claims the production was so strapped for cash they had to raid hardware stores and thrift shops for prop materials. Think duct-taped helmets and oxygen tanks borrowed from an old scuba set. But you know what? That frugal DIY approach somehow makes everything look more realistic. The spacesuits are grimy and clunky, like something you'd actually throw together if you needed to breathe in a toxic alien atmosphere on a budget. Of course, the real MVPs here are the performances. Sophie Thatcher, who plays the daughter, brings that perfect blend of determination and teenage frustration, and Pedro Pascal serves up his usual stoic yet charming vibe. The story's pacing is a slow burn, which might not be everybody's jam, but if you like frontier aesthetics and tense standoffs, this flick's a hidden gem. Just be prepared for more awkward father-daughter bonding moments than you'd ever expect in an outer space thriller. By the way, hold on to your cosmic pickaxe because the next movie has an origin story that's even more offbeat, if that's possible. Next up is The Vast of Night, a micro-budget wonder that's about as retro as your grandpa's favorite radio show, maybe even more so. Set in the 1950s, it follows two small-town teenagers who stumble across a bizarre frequency that suggests we might not be alone in the universe. Talk about timing. You just finished absorbing that folksy space miner vibe, and now you're thrown into vintage Americana with old-school switchboards and cigarette machines. It's the closest you'll get to time travel without a functional DeLorean. The film is famous for its mesmerizing long takes and roving camera shots, giving the whole thing a dreamlike, almost hypnotic quality. Word on the street is, some scenes were practically improvised to maintain that raw energy. Because, well, when you've got a micro-budget, you can't afford to do 27 retakes. The result? A real-time vibe that sucks you in like you're personally rummaging through static, trying to find alien signals. 1 minute you're eavesdropping on small-town gossip, the next you're knee-deep in speculation about extraterrestrial visitors. If you think that's weird, just wait until you hear about the next film's behind-the-scenes meltdown. Trust me, it'll make the phrase artistic differences sound like a polite euphemism. Now, Under the Silver Lake might not scream sci-fi on the surface, but it definitely dips its toes into some cosmic weirdness. Andrew Garfield stars as a bored slacker in LA who becomes obsessed with cryptic symbols, hidden messages, and possibly alien conspiracies, depending on which corner of the internet you believe. Critics couldn't decide if this movie was genius, garbage, or some unholy hybrid of the two. It's like the director took a giant post-it note that read, "All the insane conspiracy theories you've ever heard," and decided to make a 139-minute film out of it. To top it off, rumor has it, the original script was so off the rails that test audiences called it unwatchable. Now, I don't know about you, but that kind of description piques my interest. Who doesn't love a bizarre cinematic fever dream that pushes boundaries? The movie ended up getting toned down, though toned down here still means you'll question if you accidentally took hallucinogens halfway through. It's part neo-noir detective story, part commentary on Hollywood's darkest corners, part potential alien-coded puzzle. If you're the kind of person who scours Reddit for that one hidden meaning nobody else noticed, you'll be in heaven. But if you want a straightforward storyline, you might end up throwing popcorn at the screen. Onward, folks, to a project so chaotic its production made tabloid headlines. Let's talk about chaos walking, or as some internet cynics dubbed it, chaos limping. Why the harsh nickname? Because adapting a beloved novel series that's been labeled unfilmable is kind of like trying to wrestle a swarm of wasps into a neat little box. It just doesn't go well for anyone involved. The movie itself stars Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley, two phenomenally talented people who seemingly spent half the production schedule doing reshoots and the other half swatting away rumors of on-set tensions. Whether or not those rumors are true is anyone's guess, but the final product does feel like it was stitched together with a glue gun at the 11th hour. The core concept is fascinating. In this dystopian world, men's thoughts are audible, leaving zero room for secrets. Just imagine if your last embarrassing brain fart was broadcast to everyone in the room. Terrifying. Yet, with so much behind-the-scenes drama, the story never quite hits the high notes you'd hope for. Think of it as a big pile of interesting ideas jostling around inside an undercooked script. Still, it's worth a watch, if only to see how they pulled off some of the more ambitious effects. And hey, if you love movie trivia, you can spend hours reading about the reshoots alone. If you thought that was a nightmare, just wait until you discover the next movie was shot without a real script to begin with. Ever thrown a dinner party that completely got away from you? Like, maybe your friend brought up some taboo topic, or the mashed potatoes ended up on the ceiling fan? Multiply that sense of chaos by 1,000,000,000, and you'll get Coherence. This is a clever, low-budget flick about a cosmic event that warps reality. The catch? The cast apparently had no standard script. They were fed daily plot points and told, "Good luck." So, those awkward silences, hostile glares, and weirdly hilarious moments were, according to legend, pretty genuine. Picture it. You're in a suburban living room with your closest friends, only to find out you might have slipped into a parallel universe. Or are you just losing your mind? Either way, the tension is thick enough to spread on toast. This film will have you pausing every few minutes to compare notes with whoever's in the room, demanding to know if you all caught the same detail. It's part psychological thriller, part science experiment, and part dinner party gone wrong. If that's your vibe, you'll eat it up. Speaking of isolation and psychological drama, our next pick literally launches the concept into deep space. That brings us to High Life, directed by Claire Denis, who's known for turning the human condition inside out like a sock you forgot in the hamper. The premise: criminals are sent on a one-way voyage into deep space for some questionable experiments. Let's just say the moral implications alone could fill a philosophy textbook. Talk about a depressing group trip. But behind the scenes, the real gossip is how certain scenes were almost cut for being too graphic or disturbing. Turns out, not everyone wants to watch humans grappling with primal urges in the vacuum of space. Shocker, right? Robert Pattinson headlines the cast, and he's definitely come a long way since his sparkly vampire days. Here, he's brooding, haunted, and occasionally borderline catatonic, which, let's be honest, suits the grim setting. The film isn't loaded with laser shootouts or unstoppable aliens. It's more about claustrophobic corridors, eerie quiet, and that nagging dread that sets in when you realize your cosmic road trip might have no destination. If you're into slower, artsy sci-fi that delves into human nature, High Life delivers. And if you're looking for something with a more classic creature feature flair, buckle up, because our next pick has you covered. Say hello to Sputnik, a Russian sci-fi horror flick set in the 1980s. The premise? A cosmonaut returns from orbit with a secret passenger. And no, it's not a friendly ET. Rumors claim certain test audiences walked out because the gore factor was more intense than they'd expected. Always a great sign if you're a horror junkie. The vibe is claustrophobic. Cold War paranoia meets we picked up something slimy in 0G. It's the sort of premise that makes you question whether you ever want to climb into a spaceship in the first place. What sets Sputnik apart is the heavy use of practical effects coupled with some digital magic, giving the alien a creepy physicality that feels real. You might find yourself involuntarily leaning away from your screen. If you like pondering, what would the government do if it found an alien in the middle of the Cold War? Then this movie is basically catnip for you. And if you're squeamish, well, maybe watch it on an empty stomach. Now, before we wrap things up, let's talk about one last angle: the behind-the-scenes controversies, rumor, drama, and all the other stuff that really makes these films so interesting to binge. So there you have it, 7 cosmic curiosities, each with its own weird controversies, rumored production nightmares, or divisive plotlines. And hey, if you hate them, you can always come back here and blame me. Just make sure to leave a comment telling me how off base I was, because negative attention is still attention, folks. On the flip side, if you love them, and I have a sneaking suspicion at least one will become your new favorite, drop a like or a sub so you can hear me rant about even more strange, underappreciated films. We've got plenty more cosmic rabbit holes to dive down in future videos. Until next time, keep your space helmet on tight, your sense of humor intact, and your imagination ready for warp speed.